Welcome, friends. If you followed any news headlines lately, the immigration journey in America has not gotten easier this year in 2025. Ups and downs, highs and lows for especially high skilled immigrants who want to come and study and work and settle here in America. And our immigration system is confusing. But we have a special visa we're going to talk about today, the EB-5. Commonly known as the investment visa. Some people think it's too expensive, not possible, but we have some ideas and opportunities that could make this easier for you guys. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this webinar. Apologize for the delay. We had some technical issues, but I'm Rob. Welcome. At Shine Coaching, we're all about helping you guys thrive and succeed in your cross-cultural journeys. I've been blessed and have worked in places like India and traveled all over the world, so I understand the challenges and adventures of visas, immigration, living and working abroad. And we want to help you guys navigate that in our crazy American immigration system today. We've got a very special guest. Nikin, please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Rob. Super grateful to be here today with you and really appreciate all the work that you do and the perspective that you bring to the community. So, my name is Nikin. I'm originally from India. So, I grew up in Bangalore, came to the US for my undergrad, and decided to make the US my permanent home. And in terms of the work that we do now, our parent company, Open Venture, we have an immigration concierge. So we do everything from admissions to housing to jobs, and of course, visas. And the part that I oversee, which is known as OpenInvests, it's a platform to help applicants navigate the EB-5 investment green card. So we have immigration attorneys, we have developers and projects. We have dual license CA, CPAs. And what we do as a team is first help people understand about EB-5. Then we handhold them through the entire journey, finding the right project to invest in, the attorneys to work with. And we are with them till they get their funds back. And of course, the green cards as well.
Awesome. And you started in Bangalore, came to America. And did you come as an international student, Nikin?
Yes, I came as an international student to Northeastern University in 2014. And super naive. I mean, if someone had shown me a picture of Boston in the winter, I probably may not have come.
Yes,
The first time
yes.
seeing snow, the first time experiencing the four seasons, and also the first time doing chores, right? So you used to a certain level of convenience back home that now you have to take care of yourself stateside.
Yeah, it's a big adjustment. And I'm sure as a new student in America, you didn't quite realize how complicated and crazy our immigration system is. You just think, I get a degree, I get a job, and things are smooth. And you're like, whoa, it's not that easy, not that guaranteed. It's only getting harder. And that's what we want to help you guys with today.
Yep.
I'm here in Dallas, Texas. Nikin is tuning in from California. They're in the Bay Area. Great tech hub, a lot of immigrant entrepreneurs, which is exciting. But yeah, if you guys are tuning in, tell us where you're watching from. Let us know in the comments. We'd love to see where our community is joining from today. So let us know where you guys are tuning in from in the comments. And we're going to get this party started. And so, okay, Nikin, tell us kind of a diamond in the rough, a hidden gem. Why is this EB-5 more of an under-discussed, unknown visa and green card pathway that people are like, wait, what is that? I don't know what it is. Why don't people know about this as well as they should?
That's a great question. I'd say a lot of people are aware about it, but they're not educated about it, as it's a bit hazy for them.
Mm.
And also the government, they, and by the government here, I'm talking about Congress along with the executive branch. So Congress legislates, right? So they authorize different kinds of visas. And EB-5 in particular is interesting because they authorize it and renew it every few years. So the most recent authorization was in 2022 till 2027. And each time they authorize and renew the program, they change some of the rules and regulations around it. So part of it is people are like, hey, I heard it was $1 million. I heard it's increasing to $5 million. So there's a lack
Mhm.
of just clear education and guidance
Yeah, there's
around
the Trump gold
EB-5.
card, which people hear
Exactly.
about. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one. The second is for people who are even aware of it, they sometimes believe that it's out of reach, right? So there are different sources of financing that are possible, and that's the large part of the work that we do. And what do I mean by different sources of financing? So the investment amount for most EB-5 projects is actually 800,000, so it's not over a million. And by different sources of financing, I mean you can actually take gifts from friends and family. You can take out loans, and by loans here, talking about secured, unsecured loans. You can take out a mortgage. You can take out loans against your stocks, and there are various other financing ways too. What this means is it's actually achievable. So if you have been in the US for 5, 10 years, if you're a couple, husband and wife working, most often you've built up the equity and you've built up
Mhm.
the assets necessary to make a decision on whether to pursue the EB-5 route or not. So that's the large part of the work that we do, and we are here to share with you today of how it can be a viable option.
Yeah. If people don't know about the EB-5, they just don't even know how viable it is, or they think it's out of reach, too expensive. That's for millionaires, billionaires,
Yeah,
but really a lot of tech immigrant couples are eligible. And so let's explain why. What are kind of these EB-5 visa key basics? What is it? What qualifies? Let's kind of demystify some of those rumors.
yeah. The key basics is there are two sides to EB-5. There's the investment side, and then there's the immigration side. And on the investment side, USCIS basically wants to see if you're investing at least $800,000 and the funds are being used to create a minimum of 10 American jobs in a
Okay.
2-year period. Now, the way it's structured, as in most EB-5 projects are structured, is as a construction loan. So you're loaning these funds to a real estate developer to put it to work during the construction phase of a project, because that's where a lot of direct and indirect job creation happens.
Mhm.
It's set up to be passive, so you don't need to be actively involved in that construction project. And it's also a loan, and loans have fixed investment periods. So the typical investment period is 3 to 5 years. So your capital goes to work, it creates jobs, and then it's returned to you. Now, what's in it for the developer? For the developer, pretty straightforward. If they went to a bank to take a bank loan, they would be paying 8-10% interest per year. But if they take it from you, the EB-5 investor, they're paying you 1% per year. Sure, there are other costs for the developer to run an EB-5 program, but there's a lot of savings that are possible. And this is why EB-5 has become very popular in the real
Mm.
estate and construction industry. So that's the investment side. Now, quickly talking about the immigration side, this is where the journey is accelerated. The main work a legal team does is they show that 800,000, it's all lawfully obtained. So that process is known as the source of funds analysis that takes around 2 months. And then when you file your EB-5 petition, if you're already in the US, you can immediately file for a green card adjustment of status as well, right? So EB-5 has its own set of green card allocations. So it's
Mhm.
different from EB-1, EB-2, EB-3. And right now, there's no waiting time for people from India and China, which are the most backlogged countries. Now, what this means is 2 months to file your petition. When you file your petition, you can adjust status around 3.5 months. After that, you get an EAD work permit, an advanced parole travel permit. Then again, on average, anywhere from 3 months to 1.5 years, sometimes longer. You get a conditional green card. You do have to be on the conditional green card for 2 years. So just to summarize, 2 months to prepare and file the EB-5 application, 3.5 months after that for the work permit and the travel permit, then around a year for a conditional green card, 3 years for a green card. And typically the return of funds is between 3 to 5 years. So that's like the EB-5 process in a nutshell.
And what is that parole travel permit? Why is that important?
That's a great question. So it's basically a benefit the government is giving you ahead of your conditional green card being issued. So think of it as them saying that, hey, whenever you leave the country, we are paroling you or we are granting you permission in advance to re-enter. So that's technically what it means. It's called an advanced parole. But what it allows you to do is for the primary applicant and any dependents, it allows you to freely travel back and forth
Yeah,
between the US and any other country.
because other green card processes, you're kind of trapped and you have to be in country certain amounts of time and you can't travel. So this allows a lot more flexibility, which is a huge deal when you're a global family. So, and then I know with especially places like India, China, the backlog, for green card for the traditional routes are decades, even a lifetime, a century. So 3 years seems like nothing compared to what its current rate is. So that's huge.
Definitely.
And so you guys have talked about investing in construction projects as a way to show that investment, that funds, again, adding value, creating jobs. So how do people choose a project? How can they be strategic? How do they get help? If someone says, hey, I've got some money, or together combined, we've pulled some money together, but how do I show legitimacy? How can they choose the right pathway so it works and checks the boxes the US government is looking for?
This is such a great question. And you kind of phrased it the right way too, right? So what matters is actually the project. So the project matters more than the developer. And many times USCIS has authorized entities to act in different geographies of the US. So it matters more than even which regional center that you're going with. So why is project selection paramount? So first things first, you want to look for projects that are set up for success, right? Which means they would be finished even without $1 of EB-5 financing. So EB-5, if you're looking at it as a cost-saving measure as a developer, then you don't need EB-5, right? Maybe you need it for 20, 30% of your total funding, your total capital stack, as they call it. And that's the first thing to look for is where is the developer getting the money for the project? So what we like to see is the developer having skin in the game. So them putting 20, 30%, and the rest of it coming with a bank loan. Maybe it's a few banks, maybe it's one bank. So that's like the structure we like to see. And if there is EB-5 present, then it's only 20, 30% of EB-5. So to summarize, 20, 30% developer financing, 20, 30% EB-5 financing, and the rest as a bank loan. And this is the first check, is what you want to perhaps stay away from is a project that's 60% EB-5, right? Which means if they're not able to raise funds from individual investors in a given time period, then the project doesn't have enough money to get completed. So that's a big risk that we are taking. And this is one way to mitigate that risk. And the second is the business plan of the project. And this is something you have to look into more closely because EB-5 takes on various forms in the construction industry. You have everything from mixed use developments in cities to resorts in Vegas and Vail, Colorado, to single family homes, multifamily homes in rural areas, steel mills, quarries. I mean, the whole 9 yards, so to speak. So, in terms of the business plan, of course, the job creation is front and center. And the question to ask is the project creating just the bare minimum, 10 jobs per investor? Or is there a buffer? Is there 15 jobs, 20 jobs, or maybe more being created per investor? And the third is based on the type of project, you also have an exit strategy, right? So if you're looking at a hotel or a mixed use complex in a city, even before the construction is complete, most often, or the construction is complete and stabilization begins, the developer has taken on that initial task, but there's a larger asset management company or private equity firm that comes and scoops it. And we see this very often in New York City. And also, if it's, for example, an entertainment area in Las Vegas or some other big tourism hub, the space is pre-leased even before the construction is complete. So it's already starting to make a revenue before the construction has completed. So that's something you want to look at is what is the exit strategy the developer
Okay.
has in mind. And finally, something that we look for and we help applicants with is additional protections, right? Which is the project or collateral for the EB-5 investors, even if the EB-5 investors are a small portion of the capital stack? Are there any other repayment refinancing guarantees that the developer or a state, the federal government is giving? So those are the 3 to 4 things to look at when you're thinking about which project to select. And the project selection also impacts your conditional green card timeline because
Okay.
this $800,000 limit, it applies to projects in 3 subcategories, which is rural. A rural project is a project in a town with no more than a 20,000 population. High unemployment, so most urban projects fall under this category. And finally, infrastructure, which is you're building something for the public good, and it's a public-private partnership. So you want to go with a project in one of these 3 reserve categories. So just to summarize, you want to look at the developer's financing, the job creation plan, the exit plan, any other protections that are available for your funds, and overall, just the type of project if it's in one of these reserve categories.
That seems like there's a variety of options. There's more broad type of projects versus a very narrow scope. And so I think that increases opportunities, which is exciting. So, but again, sounds like for someone who's new, stepping in choosing these things isn't the easiest thing. So OpenInvests, yeah, you guys help provide kind of this guidance service. So where does OpenInvest fit in, and how do you guys help people navigating these opportunities?
Yep. A large part of the work that we do is helping the applicants filter out the signal from the noise, right? Is this is a huge amount. I mean, 800,000 is more than what people have even spent on their homes in many cases. And that, to me, on a personal level, is a big obligation, right? Is how do we work towards protecting these funds and making sure it's returned to the applicant in a timely manner? As in, for me, there's like no difference between my funds and an applicant's funds. So that's the way I approach it. Now, as a team, the work that we do, first and foremost, is education, which is helping applicants understand the immigration timeline for EB-5 as well as the investment timeline for EB-5. And many times EB-5 is a family decision. So we are not just
Mhm.
speaking to one of the spouses, we are speaking to both the spouses. I very often, or someone from our team flies to meet them, right? So traveled all over the US for that. Then they're looping in their parents, uncle, aunts, whoever else is involved in the decision making, and we are educating them too. And once people are educated, that's where the work comes in, is
Mm.
based on your background and considerations, are we helping you find the right project? And what do I mean by background and considerations? There are communities, mainly Indian origin communities, that are very familiar with the hotel industry, right?
Mhm.
So they feel very comfortable investing in a hotel because they have friends, family who have owned and operated hotels for generations. So there you have a preference. So we go source diligence, identify and recommend some strong hotel projects for investment. Other times you might be a doctor or you come from a background where healthcare runs in the family and you're very comfortable with investing in healthcare based projects. So those are some personal preferences that we take into account. Other times we are looking at it just from metrics. There are a few levers to optimize for EB-5. One is the speed at which the conditional green card is approved. So rural comes first, followed by infrastructure, and finally high unemployment. That is one lever to optimize. The second is how long do you want your funds to be deployed? Because the projects are 3 to 5 years, some sooner, some even longer than 5 years. We have to keep the exit timeline in mind. The third is yes, you're not making a large return on your funds. The 800,000 is being put to work with very low yield, but can we get something out of it? Maybe
Mm.
3% or so rather than 0.25, 0.5%. So that's something we can optimize for. And finally, the additional investor protections that I mentioned earlier, the repayment guarantees, the refinance guarantees, that's something we can look for too. So think of these as four levers, and it's hard to optimize all of them. So we would have to pick 2 out of 4 or maximum 3 out of 4. And that's the work that we do is understand an applicant's background preferences, give the project recommendations. And after this, it's the entire end-to-end process, right? So it's education, it's investment, beyond investment, it's guiding them on their entire green card journey till they get the green cards approved and the funds back. And just to close out with 1 or 2 thoughts, sometimes applicants surprise us. So when they're filling out the green card paper, they're like, hey, Nikin, I don't have my birth certificate. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, yes, I was born in a village somewhere in India,
Mm.
and we didn't have records at
Yeah.
that time, right? Now they are in the 30s, 40s. So they have passports and all the other documents. It's just that they don't have a birth certificate. I'm like, oh my God, okay. So that's a gap we very often step in to fill. Other times, the kids might be at the risk of aging out, right?
Mm.
So
Mhm.
you can be on your parents' H1 visa, L1 visa, so any work visa till the age of 21. So this is something we do with our parent company very often is how can we plan and set you up for success as a family, right? So not just looking at EB-5 in isolation is yes, EB-5 is plan A, but in case your children need a visa option as well, we often discuss the O1, J1, what have you, the F1 options with the family too. So those are some areas. I mean, it's on case by case basis, but where we can step in and support the applicant as well.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and we've shared the link where you guys can connect and book a free kind of discovery call with OpenInvest and just kind of ask those questions, see what you qualify for, see if there's any gaps, see what next steps are. So yeah, go ahead and check that out. We've got the link in the chat, in the video description as well. And yeah, book that free call and see, is this a great pathway for you to explore? You won't know until you ask. And you might be surprised that it's more attainable than you think, especially when you get the right coaching, the right guidance, especially people helping you evaluate your funding options. Again, 800,000 seems like a lot, but there's ways you can get help. There's ways that it actually doesn't have to be that much. So Nikin, tell us about these different funding options.
This is such a great question, and I've actually done an entire webinar on sources of funding alone. And let me start with the most common that we see with applicants, which is earned income, right? So this is your savings from salary. And what's important is to not just have the funding, but it's to show the origination of and the source of funding, right? And what do I mean by that is if you're planning on showing earned income, then typically attorneys will ask for 7 years of bank statements, pay stubs, and tax records. And why do they do that? It's because they basically take a marker and they go statement by statement. They show that, hey, Mr. Ram has received $10,000 in salary from Microsoft. He's paid taxes on it. And we can basically triangulate and show that it's lawfully obtained. So it's a bit of a tedious process, which is why the source of funds process takes around 2 months. But this is a very common funding source, which is earned income. Another common funding source is gifts from friends and family. And we often see this with applicants who are students here in the US. So they might be in medical school, they might be in undergrad, different programs as well. And they haven't leveraged or they haven't even started out on their careers. So they haven't leveraged their earnings potential yet, right? So often the entire 800,000 comes in as a gift from their own family or a collection of extended family members and friends as well. That's a very common funding source. The third is 401ks, 401ks and IRAs. And there are two ways of approaching this. So some applicants, they break their 401k, and for that you pay a penalty, right? If you're withdrawing funds from your 401k. However, if you have 401ks from former employers that you haven't touched, it's still intact, you can actually roll it over into an EB-5 project. Now, what does that mean? You can change the custodian of the 401k from whoever it is. You can move it to a self-directed IRA and then change the custodian to the EB-5 project. So basically the funds go from there to the EB-5 project, and then the project's completed and it comes back to your SIDRA. And that's what it's called, self-directed IRA or SIDRA. And most people aren't even aware this exists. And especially in tech and other sectors as well, we see people have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in their 401k plans, and especially 401k plans of former employers. So that's something I'd like to highlight. And finally, we see loans, right? So loans itself is a big topic because you have secured loans and you have unsecured loans as well. And what is the difference? With a secured loan, you're often pledging collateral for the loan. And here in the US, it could be your home. So you can take a loan against the equity value of your home. So it's called a HELOC. And the interest rates there are pretty attractive if you're considering a HELOC. And especially we have homes in one of the major metro areas. When you probably know this in the back of your mind too. but in the past 5 years, it's likely appreciated significantly in value. So in many cases, your home value has doubled, and you can
Mhm.
borrow against that. So you're not selling it, right, or any part of it, just borrowing against it. Another secured loan we see is with stocks. So let's say you have stock in Apple, in Google. You don't want to sell because you know those companies are going to grow bigger. So brokerages, if you're with E-Trade, Morgan Stanley, Robinhood, you can borrow against
Mm.
your stocks as well. And then we have unsecured loans. So we have seen plenty of folks use credit cards. So take a cash advance on their credit card in order to pay for a certain portion of EB-5. You have personal loans that are available too. Overall, just to summarize, a large part of the work that we do is helping applicants evaluate their funding options and work closely with them to put together a plan and then execute the plan.
I love it. I love it. And friends, if you're learning a lot in this session like me, hit that like button to say thanks and to say cheers for Nikin for breaking this down. This is a whole new kind of visa category that I'm definitely learning. All right, there we're back. And we got a chat question for you guys as well. For those of you guys are tuning in, what visa are you currently on or pursuing? So let us know in the comments if you guys are watching the replay later as well. Again, tell in the comments what visa are you on? What visa are you going for? What's kind of your dream visa? Is it one of the EB categories or another one that's going to lead to a green card pathway? So let us know. We'd love to hear from you guys as the audience. It's a complicated system, but there's a lot more options than you think. And so let's help you figure out the right ones.
Thanks for your question. And for folks who cannot see his question, Rifat asked, I'm from Bangladesh. I applied for F1 visa. Please give me some advice. So Rifat actually came to the US on an F1 visa. This was back in 2014. And I was on the F1 visa for a few years and then transitioned into an O1 visa and ultimately got my green card through EB-1A. And the very fact that you're joining us today, you're making yourself aware of these options. That's super commendable, right? So what you have to keep in mind is your country of birth is what the US system considers. So if you're from Bangladesh, you're automatically at an advantage versus someone from India or China when it comes to the visa pathway, right? So what you want to think about is your work visa and then your green card. So the work visa allows you to live and work, earn income in the US. A green card, of course, is permanent residency. So if you choose to make the US your home, then green card would be the best option. Now, not many people are aware that you can pursue both of these in parallel. So people think, hey, I first have to go on a work visa and then do a green card. That's not the case at all. You can actually do both in parallel. Now, what are the options most relevant for you? I mean, right now there's a lot of changes coming to the H1 visas. And also for the H1, you need an employer, right, to sponsor you. But there is a work visa that you can self-petition for. You do not need an employer for, and that's called the O1 visa. And for the O1 visa, you need a strong profile. So at the earliest, I mean, if you have started your studies well and good, but if you're yet to start your studies, then there's no time to waste. I'd recommend developing your profile. You're talking about speaking at conferences, publishing papers, filing for patents, being a mentor to different kinds of competitions, accelerators. So, whatever your field is, whether it's finance, healthcare, or technology, there are opportunities that you can do to start developing your profile. And these are the main ones I would focus on. Just to summarize, it would be publishing your work, followed by developing some IP, which is patents, trademarks, what have you. Then it's getting some buzz around you. So speaking at events, and then engaging in mentorship and judging, right? So giving back to the community. So this not only sets you up for the O1 visa, which you can self-petition, but for two types of green cards as well. One is the EB-1A green card, which is the premium green card. Another is the EB-2 national interest waiver green card. But hopefully I
Hey,
answered your question. Hello again,
Nikin,
Rob.
so
I was
sorry.
just, oh, no worries. I was just answering Rifat's question in the chat.
Okay, good. I'm so sorry. I never had that happen before in a live session. So it wasn't letting me back in for some reason. So I apologize to our audience, apologize to you, Nikin. That's the very first time of all the live streams that's ever happened. So I was freaking out, but we're back. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. Okay. Last thing we covered was the funding options. We were good there. We have a couple more points that we want to cover to help you guys. And then we're going to do a few minutes of Q&A as well. Nikin, thanks for filling in there for a second while I was out lost in the ether world. But let's talk about timelines. Again, people want to know, how long is this going to take? How can they plan ahead? Tell us about that.
Definitely. Kind of switching back to EB-5. In terms of timelines, the application process is pretty straightforward for EB-5. You're mainly vetting your source of funds. And then when you apply, the path is accelerated relative to other green card categories. And the main timeline is how long you and the legal team are going to take to vet your funds, right? It's to complete that source of funds analysis. Because once you apply, the process happens in an accelerated manner. And what happens is, first, you get the EED work permit and the advance parole travel permit. Think of these as temporary benefits that are extended to you while your EB-5 petition is being processed. Then your EB-5 petition is processed and you get a conditional green card. The first step takes around 3.5 months. That's what we are seeing. But if you go to a group of attorneys and you're like, okay, how long does it take for the slowest applicant? It would be 6 months, Nikin, for them to get a work and travel permit. So that's something important to keep in mind. Now, coming to the actual conditional green card, many applicants don't start by funding the full 800,000. Many applicants start with a partial funding of 100,000 or 200,000. This is important to understand because your application is considered complete only when the full 800,000 is in the bank. So from the date the full 800,000 is in, from that date to getting the conditional green card, I would say based on the category you're applying for, could be anywhere from 3 months to 1.5 years. That's a very important timeline to keep in mind. You do have to be on the conditional green card for 2 years. And why is that the case? Because in that 2-year period, USCIS wants to see that the jobs are being created, right? And at the end of that 2-year period, the conditions are removed and it becomes a permanent green card. So those are the main immigration steps involved, which is you do your source of funds, you apply for EB-5, you get your work and travel permit, you get the conditional green card, and then you remove the conditions to unlock permanent residency. Now, In the perfect world, this would kind of happen in a seamless manner. But if there's something that everyone in the audience probably is familiar now, there are other forces at play here, right? And also the system has a lot of room for improvement. So the entire EB-5 program, it's coming to an end in its current form in 2027. However, in order to protect applicants, there is a deadline that Congress has mentioned, which is September 30th of 2026. Now, why is this important to understand? Because any application submitted after this deadline is subject to a change in rules of whatever form the new program takes. And no attorney in good conscience would recommend someone to apply for after that deadline. So think of it this way, which is the EB-5 program in its current form. Your application needs to go in by September 30th of next year. So that's kind of the very hard deadline. And it's your application, right? So the rest of the steps can still take time, but you'd be protected and you'd be benefiting from the current terms. Now, there is another important timeline to consider, especially if you're India or China born, is because there are only about 10,000 green cards allocated under EB-5, and it's not escaping from the per country limit. So based on your country of birth, there's a 7% cap on the number. So if you're India or China born, it means that there are only 700 allocations that you have. And let's say you're applying as a
Is that per
primary
year
applicant
or total, or what does that mean?
per year. Yeah.
Per year, okay.
So let's say you're applying as a family of 2 to 4. I mean, one primary applicant, another 1 to 3 dependents. That's 4 visas taken out of the allocation. And with the program going into its final year, there might be a backlog that can start to develop. There might be a retrogression, as it's called, that could start to form. So if you're considering EB-5, and if you're from India or China, that would be the most important timeline to be
The
aware
sooner
of.
the better.
Yeah. So we have to apply with haste, and we have to apply as soon as possible. So at least submit the petition with that partial financing. So we lock in your date of filing, or as it's called the priority date.
Yeah. So time is of the essence.
Yeah.
Great. And before we start taking some questions, the thing we just want to wrap up with, Nikin, is EB-5 worth it? You've done a great job explaining in this session what it is, the process, how it works, the timelines, how to get qualified. But so some people that sounds either like a lot of money, a lot of effort, is it worth it? Or who's maybe the right candidate that this is worth it for? Who should really, because less than a year for that September 30th window next year, who should be really pushing to make that effort to take advantage of this EB-5 opportunity?
That's a great question. I mean, there are 2-3 things to consider for EB-5. And what I generally recommend applicants, especially folks from India, they are often thinking about between EB-5 and EB-1A, right? Because the applicants tend to be professionals with 10, 15 years, sometimes more experience under their belt. They happen to be working at very good companies. So they have the savings built up, but they also have a strong professional background. So then they're able to apply towards another green card pathway. So my general recommendation is that, hey, if you have the funds, then let's take time to do diligence and evaluate EB-5. because EB-5 is easy to rule out, right? So it's not just having the funds to invest in the project, but it's comfortable with it being deployed for 3 to 5 years. And there is an opportunity cost there, right? Because even if you put it in the stock market, the 800,000 would likely become a million or more. And here it's generating very little yield. And sometimes that's why people back off, is that, hey, I'm not willing to give up on that opportunity cost, right? I'm not comfortable with that, which is fine. But all in all, if you have done your diligence, you have ruled out EB-5, then wholeheartedly you can switch gears and go into another visa category. But is it worth it? There are a few compelling reasons which drives people for EB-5. One of the reasons is, of course, family. So if applicants have kids in middle school, in high school, the kids, if they are India born or they're born in any other country, they're at the risk of aging out. So that drives people to do EB-5. Another set of applicants, they are afraid of being laid off. So they're like, okay, if I'm laid off, then my status in the country is in jeopardy because I'm on an H-1B visa, just have 60 days, and it might take longer to find a job in this market. And then EB-5 protects you in that case, right? And especially if you have made the US your home, I mean, you have a family here, you have friends, I mean, you have a home here. So you want to get more security. So that's another reason people consider it. And finally, a lot of people have paused or putted on their entrepreneurial dreams, right? So they've been earning to start a business and or even switch jobs, try a different career for a long time because of their H-1B or L-1 visas. And now EB-5 unlocks that for you. So these are the three most powerful drivers we have seen of people wanting to do EB-5. But our process, as I mentioned, is methodical. So we're like, hey, take time, do your diligence, bring stakeholders. Let's see if EB-5 is the right fit for you. If not, well and good. You haven't spent any dollars from your side. We can switch gears and focus on another visa pathway. And at the end of the day, we are here to support you. We're here as a resource. But it's important that you consider the options and make a decision that's right for you and your family. Right.
Definitely. I love that. It's a great synopsis. Again, we've shared the links. If you guys want to connect, learn more, kind of do that discovery call. We've got just a couple minutes left here on our time and see if there is any questions from our audience. Feel free to drop those in the comments in the chat. Maybe Nikin's explained everything great already. But yeah, a chance to ask your personal questions if you've got one. Nikin, how many people have you guys helped so far in this journey? What is that experience like helping people achieve these goals?
A lot of people are still in the process, right? So the new version of the program, as in Congress authorized it in 22, and the first projects came online in late 22, early 2023. So we still haven't seen the full cycle yet, as in a project be completed, funds returned to applicants, and the conditions of the green card being removed. But we are hopeful we'll start to see that next year because we would have had time for the cycle to complete. So we'll have much more powerful testimonies and examples to share.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Yeah. And I remember again, deadline for the possible change of the program is September 30th. So to get those proposals and applications in, the sooner you start, the better. Book those calls, get those questions answered, and get that process started and to see what can happen. So we're not getting any questions in. And so I guess you've covered it excellently, Nikin. And or maybe they'll want to just connect with you more personally,
Yeah.
and answer those not in a public setting. But again, friends, we've got the links. Thanks for joining today. I know we had a few people tuning in from different parts of the world, different parts of the country. I'm really excited to share these great opportunities to help you understand that there's more than just F1 to H1B and then crossing your fingers, and hoping something good can happen. And so you can be in control of your future. You can be more in control of your visas, where I know it doesn't feel like that right now. And these help with friends like OpenInvest can really help. So Nikin, what words would you want to leave our friends with today as we wrap up?
I mean, this is something I remind myself very often too, which is the American dream is alive and well, right? So no matter
Yes.
which track you're considering a career in, or which field you're considering a career in, or if you're deciding to be an entrepreneur for yourself, there's no better place for you to realize those dreams in terms of the supporting nature of the people, in terms of just the raw opportunities that you have available, and in terms of what you can do in the future for the next generation of your family, or even giving back to your family and communities than here in the US. So I deeply believe that a large part of our work that we do is helping people realize their version of the American dream. So
Yes.
part of it is don't listen to the news, tune that out. And
Yeah.
if you need our help, we are just an email, a call away.
Yes, yeah. Those are great encouraging words. Again, friends, check out the links for next steps and resources. We love having you be part of this Chime coaching community. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Nikin. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
Have a great week.